The Drop with Frank and Brian is officially brought to you by Switch Suspension. Switch Suspension specializes in all vehicle chassis components. Lift kits, lowering kits, air ride suspension, wheels, tires, steering, and brake upgrades. They use all the best products from the best brands. And these guys are truck guys. You roll into their parking lot at the shop and they all drive custom vehicles. So they use their products that they sell on their own vehicles. So if you guys are looking for anything for your vehicles, whether you're just starting out or you just need some replacement parts or whatever, give them a call or visit their website, switchsuspension.com.
Okay.
Let's we don't need to say it's our second one of the day because nobody knows.
No one knows that. This is airing at a completely different time. But welcome to this week's show. Welcome to the Drop of Frank and Brian Frank. And our guest today is Chris Dunlop. You may know him much better as Pinstripe Chris on Instagram. Maybe. He does amazing art. We're sitting here in his studio space in Orange County. It's so cool. Got a really cool car behind us. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I wonder what that looks like, come over to the YouTube channel and check it out. Yeah. But what's up, Chris?
How's it going?
It's going good, man. It's going real good, actually.
Nice.
So, I guess we'll just start off really simply with just.
Well, I was telling him while we were setting up that he is our first guest. Mm-hmm. That's not a mini trucker. That's not like I met Chris through the trucking thing with
through the people,
mutual friends. Yeah. But he himself did not used to have a truck and got into this, or that's how we mostly
never even heard of mini truck until I moved to the West Coast.
Oh, really?
It's not a thing where I'm from.
That's what he told me. He's all like, yeah, Chris, coming from back east. I was like, I just figured you were a California dude the whole time.
I wish.
Yeah.
That would have been so much cooler.
Let's put the mic. Let's go down with yours, Chris, a little down, point it down. Keep going, and then put the mic up like that so we could see your, twist this. There we go. Okay.
All right, cool.
I was staring at you. I was like, I just see a microphone. Okay. But yeah, so let's kind of start from there.
Yeah, let's start right there. So, Chris.
I'm not a mini trucker.
You're not a mini trucker. You're not from California.
You own any against mini trucking. I don't come from that world.
Do you own any Dickie shorts?
I don't think I've ever owned any. You know what? To be honest, those things are just. They're cardboard. I can't believe you're wearing those things. I've heard if you wash them and you run them through a little bit, they get better, they get softer, but no.
No, not your style.
Pair. No.
But that's the thing. That was the thing about Dickies. When I was growing up, is the more rigid and more crisp and more crease they were, the better they were.
It seems like you haven't washed your clothes for a while. That's what it feels like. I'm just getting a little
Fools
crispy.
are out there putting starch back on it and ironing it out.
No,
so
I think they're cool. I just every time I try a pair on them, because everyone's always stoked on them, I'm just like, I can't walk around in these and not feel weird.
You just feel like you're just walking around like
this. Straight leg.
Yeah. They look great. It's just they're too firm for me, man.
Yeah.
Frank doesn't wear Dickies though.
I don't know. I haven't worn Dickies in a long time. I'm a Volcom. If we're gonna get in the weeds about it, I'm a Volcom pant kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why specifically. It's not like I have some sort of allegiance to the Volcom brand. It's just they're always kind of on sale.
That makes sense.
So I
always think that something that a lot of people really, really like, I have trouble enjoying. Because everyone's already decided it's cool. What do you need me for? You guys already know it's good.
Yeah.
Why do I want to join your cult?
That's a good way to put it.
I wear Dickies. But
Dickies
only
are cool,
I know,
right?
as Brian's wearing Dickies.
Yeah.
Dickies are cool.
We're just roasting the shit out of them.
I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I just don't own any.
Whatever's comfortable. So let's start where you're from, the beginning, kind of a brief history.
I'm from Maryland, the Maryland side, just outside of Washington, D.C. So I grew up on the East Coast. And so I grew up there, but also lived in the Midwest, lived in the South, lived northeast of the East Coast, all around. I've been here like 11 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's actually not that long. I guess I assumed you all wrong because I figured one, you're a California guy. Okay, maybe not, but maybe you've been here for like 20 years or so or whatever.
Man, I wish I'd have gotten here sooner. I wanted to get here sooner, but when everybody's life journey just takes them on all these side quests that sometimes get you there, but not in a straight line.
So growing up in Maryland, did you know that like you're gonna like this place sucks, I'm gonna move to the West Coast kind of thing?
Yeah. I feel bad saying this to people that like love Maryland. I hated it. I knew that I didn't want to stay there. It's just got a different vibe. I think it's different now than it was because a lot of places just change over time. But I like to think that most people should leave where they're from initially. The world is big. There's somewhere out there for everybody. I just didn't really like much about where I'm from, to be honest. And there wasn't like a huge car scene or anything like that. And I always liked cars when I was a kid. So, and I always had California in my mind ever since I was a kid. Yeah.
Then you made it out here.
Yeah, I did. I mean, like I said, I didn't come straight out here. I did. I lived in St. Louis for a couple of years.
So did you make the journey started it in Maryland and then kind of hopped, skipped, and jumped and ended here, or did you kind of go zigzag?
It was a lot of zigzag because I think I lived in Boston for a while before. So Boston, then back to Maryland, different parts of Maryland, and then St. Louis, then back to Maryland, and then lived in northern Maryland before me and my wife moved out here together.
Oh, cool. Oh, so your wife was with you on this journey?
Yeah. So we're both from Maryland.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we came here together.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, so make it out to California. So the thing is you're an artist. Like that's the thing. So like I think maybe like if people aren't completely familiar with Chris, I think that's another good place to start. You're an amazing artist.
I appreciate it.
And you come up with it's automotive based art. But you said that when you were growing up, like you were into cars and there wasn't much car culture where you're from. So did you like use drawing and creating art as kind of like a way to like fulfill,
or did you own what did you own cars or how did it start?
Well, when I started drawing, I would have been in first and second grade when I started drawing cars. So it was like I always like DuPont Registry or Motor Trend. There was always between supercars and hot rods and muscle cars. There's stuff that you really wouldn't see that often. You'd see it occasionally, but really not that occasionally. So the magazines was the only way to see stuff because this was pre-YouTube, pre-shows that related to everything. But I think when I was in maybe middle school or high school is when overhauling was happening.
Oh, okay.
So seeing Chip Foostraw cars, I thought, that's kind of cool. Maybe there's a pathway for that. I really wasn't familiar with the auto industry at the time, but I got into cars by I think most people like have Hot Wheels or RC cars. Just kind of enjoy the hobby on a small scale.
What posters did you have on your wall?
Oh man, I don't think I really had any full posters, but I would tear stuff out of magazines that I liked. And but I would always draw from these little tiny ads and try to like make this gigantic drawing. But that's pretty much all I had. I don't think I really stuck much on the walls. Maybe my own drawings at the time. But I always just liked a variety of stuff. And right at the end of high school, my first vehicle I ever bought was a 69 C10.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
Right at the end of having that, I bought a 72, and then that overlapped with a 2001 1500. So I started out loving trucks.
Yeah, so you started out as a truck guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's cool.
But what I really, really wanted was classic Cadillacs, which is so far out of my price capability.
Like mid-60s type stuff?
Exactly.
Or earlier?
I was like huge Travis Barker fan, so I just wanted anything that I saw that guy drive.
Yeah, that's cool.
So
that dude inspired so many people to like
I think so.
Car culture, art, music. Like that dude has inspired a lot of people.
No doubt. I think honestly he brought a lot of recognition to the Cadillac name.
Oh, for sure.
Points get enough credit for that. But
for sure. Well, blasted down his ribs like, yeah.
What are you gonna do? Yeah. And maybe people feel differently now, but at the time nobody really famous was rocking cars like that. Not proudly. So that was really, really cool. But because I knew I couldn't afford Cadillacs, that kind of led me to Buicks. So I had a ton of classic Buicks.
Oh, really?
I love those cars. Yeah. So I was about as close as I can get. But classic American stuff was like, to me, always going to be a stepping stone. I always wanted like sports cars and exotics, but it was not like attainable. But I love classic trucks, which made life both easier and harder later when I was doing a lot of especially C10 artwork.
Did it make you just start like not liking C10s?
Eventually.
Yeah.
Because I had them when I got made fun of for having them because mine were junk. They were throwaway. My first one was $750. and with my daily driver. And I replaced it with a beautiful 72 that was $1,200.
I was gonna say, because you were saying how Cadillacs were out of your price range.
Oh yeah.
If you flip that now,
Oh,
Yeah.
my
the
goodness.
C10s would be out of the price
Oh,
range
yeah.
as well, because
They're insane.
yeah,
They're
Yeah,
great.
good.
They're beautiful, but
unless you want like a long bed, something that's not very popular. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You really can't.
yeah.
Well, that's how I ended up with 4-door cars. Because like that was my
That's true.
thing.
Same
Like
here.
I was in the same boat. I've had a lot of vintage Cadillacs over the years,
wow.
and that was the thing. Is like couldn't afford a 2-door, so got a 4-door, and now I love 4-door
Yeah.
cars. You know, so I don't know. It's funny how all this stuff like shapes our taste and
That's true,
what we
yeah.
like. You know,
Yeah, not being able to have access to something does give you like you go with what you can work with, and eventually somehow everything becomes cool anyway. So
that's
Yeah.
true. That's a good
it's just
point.
not when you have it.
And I think that's a big reason mini trucks were so popular when they were, because new they were cheap, used they were cheap.
Yeah, interesting.
Same with Volkswagens, right?
Yeah.
People bought Volkswagens because they were cheap, and you could do whatever you want with them,
It's true.
and you make them unique. I wonder what people would do, like if they grew up with. I mean, there's people like this, so with a limited, like no limits on the money that they had, and then what would they get if they had no limits on the money? So we get things because we're limited on our budget,
Of
course.
so it forces us into something.
Sure.
But if you had like an unlimited budget, but you still had the same mindset, you weren't like a spoiled rich kid that you're just gonna get like something crazy because your buddy down the street that's also rich got
course,
something crazy.
yes.
Like, would you still buy like the C10 or
Right.
the Cadillac?
that's a good
you probably
question.
would have bought the Cadillac.
At least at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Because I would always want to have something that nobody else has.
yeah.
Right now, a lot of people have C10s. I just don't see myself as interested in that. And it's cool to have a community around stuff, but once it gets really big, it's no longer niche anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that knowing that I own stuff that's not niche, but just from the point of view of for the cost of what a nice custom built C10 is,
You could like get
go to a
some-
dealership and buy a Ferrari is what you can do.
Oh yeah, yeah. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but I mean, they're going for $100,000+.
Yeah.
So, and I think the people that are buying those aren't buying them because they love C10s.
Maybe some
Oh,
people do. I just
I think they do, and then they have a lot of money, right? But then I
Yeah.
think there's some that maybe just buy them because their buddies have them.
that's true, and a lot of people do. And there's a lot of really,
And I'm
really
not
cool
saying that
builds now.
these are all bad things. Or
No,
anything.
not at
No,
all.
these are
Yeah,
you're just
yeah.
stating
Yeah, yeah,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I
it's
get
just
it.
kind of the state of the world with it right now. I don't think it's a bad thing either. What it does is it ruins it for everyone down the line trying to get into the hobby.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's no longer now that let's say C10s are priced out. What is the next achievable vehicle that people kind of go, oh, I really want that, but what's the Cadillac that was for me that I couldn't get? What's the Buick for everyone else right now?
Right.
What do
I
you
have no
think is
idea.
the next achievable vehicle?
Gosh, I don't know. Everything has become so popular so quick.
It really
Stuff
is,
that I
yeah.
didn't
Do you think it's because there's a thing where like not being trendy is trendy?
Of course.
It becomes a trend, right?
Yeah.
So everything's a trend at some point
some
in time,
point.
right? So everyone's trying to think of the next thing first.
Yeah.
And they're like getting on stuff, and then something blows up and something doesn't. But like,
Well, because we have social media and we're connected and all the ideas exchange so quickly, in reality, we're limited to like the last 70 years of vehicles. There's not actually that much to choose from.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because there's 70 years of good. There's 100 years of vehicles, but there's 70 years of good.
yeah.
And I don't know, 10% of them are actually sort of cool to begin with.
Yeah.
If you buy something that's really ugly, some Studebaker that is just absolutely an abomination to begin with, the amount of money that you have to spend to make it cool just outweighs the whole process to begin with. It's not turnkey. It's not. You can lower and put wheels on anything in a paint job, and most things look pretty good that way. But the problem is a lot of like kind of subculture cars that have such a large asterisk at the end of them. You're like, it's cool, but I have to explain a lot to people when I get places.
That's kind of mini trucks.
Yeah.
That's kind of mini trucks.
There's a cool part to that because
Yeah.
there's something so unique. Yeah.
Well, mini trucks look cool when they're lowered on the right wheels.
That's
right?
true.
When you start to overly modify them, then it becomes almost the explainable,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah,
because
that's
a
true.
vehicle's set up at the right height and with the right wheels and all that stuff, and it looks great even in factory form with some minor modifications. Like, but then you like say you overly chop the roof, or
Right.
you
Oh, and that happens
shave,
really fast.
or you put just these Jeep headlights because
No
Different
one
for
has
the
Jeep headlights
yeah,
that I know.
exactly.
I'm trying to think who has
no.
Jeep headlights that I know. Like
Worm.
Worms are FJ Cruisers, I think.
Oh, okay.
Anyways, I'm not talking about you, Worm.
I know. He's like,
I'm just
"What'd I
thinking
do?"
I know. But like, okay, so S10s with Cadillac taillights, they look great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if you take an S10 and you put like weird taillights on there, then it becomes an explainable object. You have to explain
Yeah.
why you did it.
I think it's like if you get a tattoo that you really have to explain to people,
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
not usually a good sign. Unless it's like odd in a cool way. Because tattoos can be odd in a cool way.
Like a personal tattoo that you might not need
that
to
just,
explain
yeah,
to
that's
someone.
so like, that's interesting. I have to ask that person about it. Like,
I've done that before.
Yeah.
I've straight up asked like people like at the amusement park. I see someone like we were at the amusement park and I saw someone like with a face on it, and I was like, it was so interesting that I had to ask like, what's going on with that? And he was like, oh, this was my buddy, and he was like wearing a costume or something. But yeah, no, I get that. Yeah.
that makes a good story, especially if the artwork is executed well. And the same problem can be done with custom builds. If there's a cool story, but the execution is not so good, which there's just infinite variables when it comes to quality of build. And there's no, I'm not in charge of the rules. No one's really in charge of the rules. There's not set parameters. But I think as a general aesthetic, we all understand when something just isn't right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the human brain? Like, you ever hear that thing where if you look at someone and this side of their face is this side of their body and this side of their body, but if something's off on one side, it makes you like something, it tricks something and trips something in your brain?
Which makes sense. And again, it's not like I've got the universal rules. I'm not gatekeeping what's good and what's bad. Build what makes you happy.
Because there are builds that, whether it be a mini truck or anything, that are over the top, crazy, modified, but you look at them and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or just a
Because
different
the
approach
execution,
to something.
execution might be.
Yeah, you can do something really unusual and just be dialed in the details, and it can work out great. It's just hard to do that on a budget.
So you get asked a lot to do like design renderings, right?
Used to.
So this is a subject I want to get into after this question or after this topic. So when you did that, were you the idea person? Was they like, hey, I don't really know what the design wants. So what do you think about shortening this bumper or doing this? Was it like, how was that process? Like, were you giving them ideas, or were they giving you ideas, or was it a collaboration of the two?
It was always a combination, because there's some shops that I got to work with that were like blank slate, what can we do? And some shops that I work with that had bullet list parameters. Here's what we're looking for. So some shops really knew what they were after, and some had some wiggle room to try to figure it out, or open to feedback. Obviously, early on when I was just doing whatever I could for work,
You just did everything.
There's no reason anyone would take my advice. I would chime in a little bit, but most of the shops I was working with, even in the beginning, already were established. So I didn't really add any value, except I was the person
they just wanted to visually see.
Yeah, can you put it together for us?
And you just offered that service for them.
At least initially. Everything runs its course, and eventually you're like, all right, now I'm drawing stuff that I don't agree with. Like morally, I don't feel good about this anymore. So if it's like, I won't do a piece of artwork that I'm not going to be proud of in the end. If someone has a suggestion about something and I don't think I can do a good job with it, I don't want to be involved. Not because I'm the gatekeeper and say, I do a good job, better than anybody else. There's an artist out there for every single aspect of things that you want. I just might not be a good fit for that quest. So just got into a better habit of just starting to say no better, which I think everybody needs to learn how to do.
That's the exact question I
wanted
to ask. On the way here, I was like, the journey to saying no is one that a lot of people have a hard time getting to.
Especially if you're a freelancer or you do anything on your own, because in the beginning, you want every opportunity that you can, because it's how you're trying to make your living.
And all three of us do that to a certain extent. Like I do videos and photos for a living. Frank does videos and t-shirts, you know what I mean? And screen printing, and then you do artwork. So like we've all dealt with a very similar probably client base, but on a different level. Like, and then you get to a point in your career or your path where you have to, your mind is going, I have to tell this person no.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I want the money, or I want the opportunity, or whatever.
Of course.
But it's like, how hard is that to get to?
Because
you're much farther along than both of us.
Oh yeah.
My first answer when anyone asks me for something is no. That's where I start now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I rarely do commissions. I rarely do requests. Now, that's not to say that I don't want to. I think it makes the conversation a little bit simpler if you start from no, because my job no longer is, I don't provide a service for people anymore.
Okay.
I don't do build renderings. I rarely do commissions as paintings. It's not to say that I won't. I just think that for me at this point, it funnels the conversation faster, especially the volume of conversations that happen through social media, to start from a certain parameter so that you can set the conversation up towards a goal for them and for me. But how difficult is that is actually really, really difficult. And it's a long journey, and everybody has a different tipping point where they kind of go, okay, I've done enough of this to where I kind of need to add my creativity to this. One, so that I'm still interested, because I think I offer something, hopefully, to this that can elevate what they want. So I should raise my hand and I should say something. And if they say, no, that's stupid, you suck, let's not do that. It's a little defeating, because there's plenty of people that are going to say no to you in the same process.
Mm-hmm.
The balance is finding a way, especially people that you've worked with for a long time that you have a good relationship with. How do you find a friendly way to say no, or a friendly way to say, you know what, this isn't something I do anymore? Because the problem is, if you keep making exceptions, especially for people you worked with forever, you'll never stop making exceptions.
That's yeah.
It's because we've had a relationship for a while. I have an original piece of Pinstripe Chris artwork.
Nice.
That you did for Chelsea. I think it was
that's
for
right.
Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
The
hanging
Merc.
up in our house. That was 2014.
It was a
15.
long time ago.
So it was a long time ago. So between then, when you said yes to me, now I wouldn't ask you to necessarily do something like that, and or even like a T-shirt design. You've done a T-shirt design for me, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't ask you to do that now, just because you're in a different place now.
True.
When did that change for you? Because we had never had that conversation.
That's true.
Of like when it changed. Like, when did something happen in your career path?
Definitely.
And was it a personal thing or a business thing?
It was definitely not a personal thing. It was definitely probably a business, social media related type of thing. There's always, same with you guys, there's a million moving parts all the time. If you do video, you basically assume that person does photography. If you do photography, you basically assume that person does video or audio or some combination. Same with artistry, especially in the car world. If someone says, if I'm working with somebody and I'm doing renderings a handful of years ago, they probably have the assumption that I can do a T-shirt design for them, or I can do other things related to graphic design. And while technically I can, it's also like the way that I frame it in my mind when I'm saying no, especially to a T-shirt design or a rendering these days, is there's a kid out there just like me that this is their dream job.
Mm-hmm.
I should let them have this, because this is their opportunity to get started. I don't want to half-heartedly do something that somebody somewhere really wants this opportunity to get them started. And there's a million people that can do artwork. It's just, you don't need to stretch one creative person's ability to do everything, because even as I found that I was doing more and being more diverse, I was actually getting further and further away from my end goal.
Wow.
I was helping everybody do stuff, but not like begrudgingly, but in a really unfulfilling way. I was busy every day. I was making money. I was doing things. People were getting stuff sort of on time-ish. It was the greatest at scheduling. But the reason I got into doing what I do was not to work for anybody. And here I was working for a million people.
For a
doing
bunch
all
of
this
different
stuff.
bosses.
Yeah, and I thought at that realization, you kind of go, well, this sort of defeats the purpose of what I set out to do. Because I came from the body and paint world. I did that for almost 10 years before I switched over to artwork. I'm used to having a boss. I'm used to working more than I should and not getting paid. So to roll that into what I'm doing now, I'm like, well, no. Let's back it up here. So I think it's really important to periodically, a few times a year, really do a good personal check-in and go, am I moving in a direction, even if I'm off path? Is this gig giving me somewhere towards that, or am I taking a few steps back? And sometimes it's necessary to take jobs that we're like, sometimes I just need the money. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a good job of it too. But sometimes it's a cool opportunity that you're like, this only comes up every once in a while. I want to be the person that does this, whether
or the
it pays well or
curiosity
not.
factor kicks in of working with that person.
Sometimes
or that
somebody
group.
asks about something that's so offbeat, and you're like, I could give that a try.
Yeah. And that's, again, kind of goes back to, it's okay to ask.
It is, yeah.
But it's also okay to say no.
Yeah, I think
it's also okay to hear no.
Yeah, it's all, and that's the other side.
I think
is
hearing
that you have
no
to be
is more
accepting
difficult.
of it.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
For me, it feels like people take it personally when I say I don't do that type of work anymore, or we no longer offer that, or that I rarely do commissions. Because I don't want people to take it personally, because it's not personal. It's what I do is really, really personal to me. So I want to make sure that everything that I'm involved in is substantive and moves me towards what I really, really want to do. And as I started letting go of the things that weren't really satisfying me in the way that I wanted, even though everybody's always worried about, if I'm not making that much money, you realize that 70% of focus that you're putting towards all the other things that aren't related to where you're going to go are taking all that energy away from time away from the things you actually want to do. If you eliminate all these things, you actually have a lot of free time over here. Sure, it may not pay you right away, but the thing that you really want to do, whatever it is, you never have full attention to it if you're spread that thin across a million things. Yes. If I'm doing a bunch of t-shirt designs and renderings throughout the weeks, but my goal is to do paintings, but I can only allocate 6 hours a week to painting, I'm not actually chasing my dream. I'm setting it aside. And that's no fault of anybody else. You should organize your time accordingly. And of course, everybody's parameters for income, what you need to make as a baseline is so different, which is why I think keeping your overhead really, really low, especially in the beginning, is super critical. You can shoot videos. You can shoot HD from a cell phone. Yes. You can make YouTube videos from a cell phone. You can get pretty decent audio from a cell phone.
Yeah,
you don't need to go full bore.
When anyone asks, what camera should I get? And I go, what kind of phone do you have?
Yeah.
Start there.
And they go, I have this. I go, that's what you need.
Yeah.
Like, depending on what you want to do, he's like, I just want to go to car shows and shoot some video. Just go. You can go get a $150 little gimbal and use your phone and start out on that. And if you enjoy it, then do that. But
exactly. Elevate as you go. I think people want to throw in really hard, and that's good that the enthusiasm is there, but you're parting with money right away. So whether you have it or not, whether you're putting it on credit cards, but you're immediately adding to your overhead without necessarily being sure of your goal. So like if you get a lot of paints, you get the microphones.
Yeah.
Everybody's really enthusiastic about their goal, kind of until it feels like work.
Right.
And then you're like, there's a lot to put in. And that, I don't want to say it weeds people out. It changes the way you think, because all of us have the goals of doing really specific, I want to do this, whether it's possible or impossible. But no matter what, even if it's a huge, unachievable dream, it still takes a lot of work to get there. So you still have to be, whether you have the $12,000 camera or the iPhone, you still have to put in the same level of work. So subtract the overhead, and then you
So
minimize.
what you're saying is just like, instead of being so wrapped up in like, it happens a lot, especially photography stuff.
Industries.
Yeah, like you get wrapped up in the gear part of it that you forget to focus on honing the craft part of it.
You've got to be good at what you do anyways. The tools that you have don't make you good at the thing. So when people are asking me what materials I use, what brushes, what airbrushes, those are helpful to a degree because they're tools that to me are tried and true, and they work, and the paints work good. But I think a certain way, so my process is a certain way. We're all different. We all come from a different experience, and we all want to see progress look a certain way. And I think, especially with social media, we get wrapped up in seeing somebody's video, and you go, I want my video to look like that, so I got to have what this person has. Same with artwork. And it's a really big leap into lots of money before you've even sat down to figure out if you're good at drawing.
Right.
I think at least 40% of all total camera sales
Our first time.
are first-time buyers. And if you ever want to buy a camera, you can get one used market, because that's 2 years old. That's just fine, because someone somewhere bought that camera. You see it when you go on vacation anywhere, and you see the guy with the strap around his camera, and he's got a $4,000 camera around his neck, and you're like, that guy just bought that camera because he probably has a lot of money, and he thinks that that's what you need.
I mean, if it's what you do for work, or even if it's a serious hobby, and it doesn't overextend you, then
Perfect. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Then it's totally fine. But if you don't need that.
To start out, if you want to do any of this type of stuff as a full-time job, you don't need to start with the equipment.
Yeah.
The amount of YouTube videos that exist to say, if you want to get started with podcasting or vlogging, you need this, this, and this. And it's like, wow, that's like $15,000 to get going.
Yeah.
That's
Which
great.
That is an industry in its own. It's
It
like
is.
motivational speaker
Exactly.
type.
Oh,
The job is
really
to
good
sell
thing.
you to buy stuff, to buy other stuff.
The motivational, we talk about this quite a bit, is 90% scam, because they're
Jesus.
telling you the most basic things but they're surrounding it in a way that feels good.
Or they can deliver it in a certain way.
Yeah. I mean,
if you need it and you take it in and it helps you.
Yeah,
great.
the shit is it works. It is effective.
Yeah.
But you gotta know. So you gotta see it for what it is.
Exactly.
Know when to draw the line. Know when to go. All right, I'm not signing up for this course, but I'll listen to this YouTube video.
Yeah.
Right.
If you have to pay to sign up for a course or buy brain pills of any sort,
I did like it's probably not going to work out.
Yeah, supplements. Like if there's like a asterisk at the bottom of that,
Yeah. Especially if it's subscription based.
Yeah. But if motivational, if it's like a friendly motivational type thing, it's great.
A lot of people with experience have a lot of really, really great wisdom to share, but wisdom with a paywall is where things get murky.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's not necessarily a paywall that you're paying them to hear them.
That's true.
It's a YouTube video that they're making money on.
Which is fair. I mean, we're all in business.
Which is fair. It's you can do whatever you want, but at the same time, is that person mean what they say, or are they doing it to make money for what they say?
And I think,
and everyone's got to make money in what they do, so they might be good in doing it, but you have to be very aware of what you're.
Agreed. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing the business that way, but as the consumer, you should be a little bit more aware of what you're signing up for, especially now that I think most people are aware that a lot of motivational stuff is pretty predatory and scammy. It's just elevator pitch, tier system.
Yeah. Same with any real estate videos on YouTube.
There's good motivation in there, but
just like anything else, you have to sift through.
That's true. Yeah.
And find what works for you and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and you kind of were going into about that before, about that's sort of the same thing. So some people get wrapped up so much in trying to like make it before, like learning the craft.
Sure.
So that motivation, like that's almost where you need to start, is the motivation to create something good.
I think there's a lot of fear in the creative process because as soon as you try to do something, you're being really honest with yourself about where you are with that. Right. Buying stuff is easy. Anybody can do that.
Yeah.
But confronting your inabilities is really tough, especially when you've decided this is your dream. What people don't see, especially through Instagram or any social media, is that we're all failing in the background constantly.
Yeah.
We're just showing the part that's necessary to see. I don't think anyone will feel great about what I do if they see all the stuff that I throw away or the redos. I share some of that stuff, but people that are really successful are also failing really big all the time. It's not as lucrative to share that part.
Right. Yeah, and it's not as like polished and fancy and
yeah.
Do you? I don't know how much YouTube or Motor Trend or anything you watch, but do you ever watch the Roadkill stuff?
A little bit. So I think their success and the reason that they're good at what they do is because they show their failure when it happens. That's true. There's something genuine about that.
Yeah, like if they don't make it to the end goal, or if the motor blows up or whatever, but they don't always fail. It's not a show about failure; it's a show about trying.
Yeah.
But then they're really good at explaining, like, hey, this is just what happens sometimes.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's okay.
And there's a lot of reality to it, because every bit of all the things that we do, even just the nature of car building, there's a lot of trial and error. Yeah. And you can't really know, because everybody's kind of got different mental parameters too. And that failure can seem super stressful, especially if you staked your reputation on it. So, but there's a difference between, if you're failing at doing something, it doesn't make you as a failure as a person, but it can feel that way when you're failing. Like, oh my God, I'm letting everybody down. I thought, I told my grandma I was going to do this. Now she's super upset because I can't, everything takes practice.
Yeah.
And through the practice, you either get good at something or you find out that there's a different version of the path that you need to take to get there.
And you wouldn't figure that out until you started.
And you really just kind of got to dig in and be bad at stuff for a while. There's nothing wrong with that.
So going back to your artwork and stuff and where you're at now and where you started with, when did you really become serious about it as an income as far as the artwork goes? Was it when you got known for the Sharpie stuff? Like when did you know that this was going to be your thing?
the day,
because the Sharpie art, you kind of were owned into a corner there with that stuff for a while,
at least
right?
early on. Yeah. It's pretty broad now because of social media, which is cool. There should be a lot more people doing it. But I had done a bunch of that stuff prior to moving to California, which is great. Kind of give me a leg up, at least on that side of stuff. But again, that was sort of pre-social media. The day after I stopped working at the very last shop that I worked at, the day after, I was making artwork and selling it on Facebook. is pretty 1-to-1 for me because I was overlapping them just a little bit, doing renderings a little bit on the side. I wasn't doing renderings for the shop I was working at. I was still just doing body work. I wasn't even painting at the shop. And it was just an awful situation with a SEMA build that was just like, it was my first experience with a SEMA build ever. Again, I'm from the East Coast.
You hear that a lot.
I never heard of SEMA until we're doing the SEMA build at this first shop that I ever worked at in California.
And when you say you were working at a body shop, were you Bondo sanding body guy?
That's me, yeah.
Oh.
And I don't mind it. Yeah, even though I went from having a shop where we were working on Ferraris to coming here to sanding and making a mess, I'm working at a hot rod shop in Huntington Beach, California. I'm living a dream.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. I didn't care how messy I was. I never minded being the sanding, wet sanding, the messy person. It doesn't bother me at all. I like the work. It's fun. It's working for a tyrant that's ridiculous. Somebody that has unrealistic expectations. And you just can't force certain chemical stuff to do something it's not capable of doing. Yet somehow, every year, as a tradition, we manage to try for a SEMA build.
Yeah.
Don't know why. And it's not like it's any different now than it was. But yeah, so straight off of that just absolutely miserable SEMA build, I was already doing artwork on the side, and it was more renderings, and it was a little bit more Sharpie, a little bit more graffiti stuff. But I'd started not really even having a presence on Facebook, but that's kind of where I started, Facebook and Instagram. And I was selling right away because I was a bargain. And I was also offering prints right away. And but and even now it's still the same. At the time, my overhead was low. I was working in the kitchen in my 1-bedroom apartment. I was driving a 74 Volkswagen Bug. Like, my minimum that I needed to make was so low that just selling artwork was amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay, I was selling drawings for $50. Well, by the time I've sold 10 or so, I've pretty much covered my bases. If I'm at home working, I'm not going anywhere spending any money. So just being really cost effective about how I was doing things. But the one thing that really did come out of working in the paint and body industry is I am crazy efficient. I'm super productive. So it's a difference of, all right, I'm going to work on this painting and I hope I get it done this week. This is going to be one of the 4 things that I work on this week. And I'm going to routinely get something finished, start on something, get something finished, start on something, get something. I don't overlap projects. I only work on one thing at a time. So that gets finished no matter what. And
that being working in a body shop taught you that efficiency. Kind of time management, efficiency.
And from a bad point of view, honestly, because it's not like I ever, the one criticism everybody I ever worked with ever told me is I was too slow. So it doesn't matter how fast you are. Someone's always going to tell you you're too slow.
Yeah, for sure.
So once that's in your mind, you're always looking for the answer. How can I work faster? What's the paint material that's going to get me there faster? What's the edge that I can learn? Sometimes you just practice and learning to be faster. Sometimes it's materials. You learn to make decisions to help make your job easier, and you can only accumulate that through time.
And experience.
Yeah. But the short answer is I started selling artwork day one, and that was 11 years ago.
And you are now still selling artwork.
I am still selling artwork. So to this day, I still get asked what my real job is.
Yeah, same. I get that too. And then they go like, so what do you do? And I'm like, I do this. And they're like full time? I'm like, yeah, that's what I do. And they're like,
it sounds like a made up job.
Yeah.
Every time if I'm photographing a vehicle for someone I've never met before that doesn't know me and stuff, they're like, so what do you do full time?
Yeah.
It's an interesting space to be in.
It is.
Because you kind of compared us all, because I think in some capacity we're all creative people with different skills, obviously. But there's still, I think I'm listening to you and listening to like all the things that you're saying. And one thing that I'm really noticing is that satisfaction of your creative drive. And you're constantly like just trying to like satisfy that. And that's sort of what I was saying before, where you like kind of reverse engineer it. You work on the creative side, the passion side, and then work towards how to make that easier through whatever things you're buying.
It's always a mix, because I think there's a lot to be, people say, you should follow your passion, you should follow your dream. And sometimes that is unrealistic. You should also try to stay on planet Earth a little bit. Your dream can be long-term, and you can appreciate all the steps to get there as well. If you're saying no to everything because you're waiting for that first $50,000 gig, you're doing it wrong. You're saying no too much. Everybody sort of needs to, earn their keep a little bit. You have to earn credibility for that $50,000 person to say yes. Like, who are you? And who's going to gamble on you without some credibility? So we all have to start somewhere and build up to that. And so passion and kind of following your core beliefs does need to be somewhat fluid.
Like a little flexible.
A little, yeah, because you do at times need to say yes to stuff that you wouldn't otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it's morally just against what you would do, yeah, it's obvious. But again, we each get into different spots financially or with opportunities that may not come up twice. We're like, I just feel like I have to say yes to this.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you've said no to that you regret?
No.
No, that's
no,
pretty
I
good.
don't think so. Yeah, I've been lucky. But I mean, I live on social media like everybody else. I see opportunities that other people get that I'm like, oh, I bet I could have knocked that out.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, that's just envy.
So you're not doing renderings anymore. What is it exactly you're doing now, and when did that start? How did that come to be? When was the
changeover?
When was the changeover?
Yeah.
What I just want to interject because that's what my kind of burning question is because I've been following you a long time, following your journey through Instagram and stuff, and I remember the kind of the point that you came to where you were like doing one particular art style, and you kind of just said, you know what, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm only going to do stuff that I like to do. And that's what, yeah. So when was that?
So there was a while where I was trying to mix painting with what felt like the bread and butter work, the renderings and the concept and design work, which is pretty infinite if you want to make a living at that. There's so much to do. There's a lot of work. There's tons of great shops to work with. But I just felt like I was on everybody else's schedule and I was always behind. And I didn't love that. And trying to overlap that with time to paint just never kind of came to fruition. And we haven't gotten into this yet, but God, so much of what I do is social media based, and there's a lot of science behind the way that a lot of that works for me. And at the core, it's pretty obvious to me that you share with your audience what you want people to ask you to do. When you stop sharing the things that you don't want people to ask you to do, you're only left with doing the things that you want.
Right.
No one's going to ask me for renderings if I'm not posting renderings. So I stopped posting renderings. I still do them for shops occasionally that I've worked with for a long time, but I no longer post them. I no longer share them because I don't want any questions related to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of helped slow that down. While I was still doing that work, I was no longer doing it as publicly because I still wanted to maintain some relationships that I had, and I still do. It's just I don't need more of that to do. I needed less of that with people that I really, really liked, that we communicated long enough that we sort of understand each other.
And is there still an excitement to that part of the, like, is there still like, you're like, oh, I haven't done this in a while. So when that person does hit you up, you're like, it kind of gives you a break from it?
A little bit.
It's
a nice change up, but I never don't want to paint.
Yeah.
To me, that's at the core what I was chasing the entire time. And trying to overlap that with achieving a dream that I thought that I wanted to do renderings full time. I really thought that I wanted to be chip foos. And then I got to a point where I was doing that all the time, and it wasn't as fulfilling as I thought it would be. And I think people say that about a lot of dreams that you chase. You kind of go, well, eventually everything becomes like work. And I just thought, no, it shouldn't. I don't think so. There is work involved, but I do this. I came from a career where I was doing stuff for other people. This should feel a little bit differently. And while I was mixing paintings with that and posting them alongside of renderings, I could never get the focus toward paintings. I couldn't sell the paintings as well because I was mostly getting questions about renderings or personal illustrations. Can you draw my car? And it was more illustrations, drawings, and less paintings, even though paintings is kind of where I wanted to head. So I just decided I'm going to stop sharing anything that's illustration and rendering based and just lean towards paintings. And what really made a big difference for me is the early days of TikTok at the very beginning, and then when Instagram adopted Reels. I thought, I don't know how I can share a paint process that makes this interesting for people to watch, because you literally are watching paint dry the whole time. No different than an illustration necessarily. It's just more technical to do it as an illustration versus a painting. But I've always personally thought that paintings were more substantive to me. When I go to a gallery, I like to see a big piece of artwork hanging on a wall, some canvas and some paint. So the videos allowed me to share more of the process of that. And it wasn't until then that it occurred to me, just based on feedback, that the way I do things is not necessarily like the way everybody does things.
Right.
So,
it's just your process.
Yeah, and everybody's is different anyways, but what I do doesn't necessarily make sense even to other artists. And I thought, okay, well, this is an interesting edge. I'm not being obtuse for the sake of being obtuse. This is just the way I think about the process, just based on other experiences. And I even tried to do some rendering stuff as videos, and it was difficult to make look as interesting, even if I tried, and I can understand why. So I just sort of divorced myself from the idea of doing that, because I thought, I want to do paintings. Let me just do paintings. And it happened that a few years ago, I did a really big art installation for a collection. And it was me and a couple of guys that worked on it for a few months. I got paid really, really well because I read contracts well. I negotiate well. At the end of the day, I already have the job, dream job. So I can say no just as much as I want. Mm-hmm. I don't care necessarily about money so much as am I wasting my time doing a job that somebody else would love?
That's a really interesting space to explore, because I think today with a lot of people it is all like a money thing, like getting the most money or maximizing the most opportunity on this thing, when again it's that reverse engineering thing. Like, start thinking about what makes you happy and like the process. I do that too.
It's good.
Like sometimes I look at stuff, I'm like, I should care about the money, but sometimes like I don't even care about the money because I don't want to do that.
That's the thing is, obviously everybody at the core, we all know that money is important. We have costs, we have overheads, we have families, we have things. Money is important, but the way that I think about it, because I don't work for anybody and I start from that point all the time, I'm automatically doing whatever I want every day. How much is my freedom worth then? Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to charge for. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, if someone doesn't want to pay me a lot, I'd rather play video games and hang out by the beach. I can do that for free.
Right.
So why would I spend my free time doing something that I don't want to do? And that's not like that I hate the offers or jobs that I get. Again, I might not be the right fit for it. And if I think that job is going to take me a week, there's just no amount of money that makes me interested in that.
Right.
When I could just hang out at the beach
for
free.
That's
doing whatever I want.
It's also
that's such a great headspace to be in.
And it's also not fair to the person asking you.
No, because you're not going to get the best.
Yeah, you're not going to get the best person.
They might not realize that at the beginning, but at the same time, like I have had people constantly almost. I want you to do videos. I want you to do videos, and I'm like, I'm not the guy, and I refer them to the person.
Yeah, totally.
Kind of a person, and they're like, no, but I want you to do it. Like, I really like you, and I'm like, look, I appreciate that, but I'm not the guy that throws effects on all these videos and makes them swooshy and does all
and that's
this.
What they're looking for.
And they're looking for the trend of swoosh and this, and I'm like, I'm like more of like I try to tell stories versus like market your products.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a difference between when you're a creative, you say, especially with a lot of years and a lot of experience, you kind of go, I've gotten to here because I do something hopefully different than the other people in my industry. If you want what that guy offers, call him. Seriously. Yeah. I don't want to copy his style.
And not saying his style is there's anything wrong with it.
No.
Mm-hmm. It's just not your style.
It's just not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that guy's talented as all get out.
Call that person.
Yeah. And your business deserves, you know what I mean? Like, you're paying someone.
This is what you want.
You're paying someone a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you can make more money.
Mm-hmm.
You deserve what you want,
and that attention. Again, if someone's trying to coach you into doing something that you may not want to do, especially with friendly relationships, I get talked into stuff, and I'm like, you regret it while you're working on it because you're like, I remember why I didn't want to do this, and you'll work through it. You'll get it done, especially for people that you work with for a long time. But sometimes I like that because it's a good reminder. It's a good check-in. Kind of go, oh, that's why I don't say yes to these anymore.
Yeah. It's also a gamble on a good time, because you could have been like, oh, this was actually a really good time. Like, depending on the time you're willing to spend on it. Like, say, just for example, someone says, hey, come Sharpie my car. You're like, I really don't want to do that anymore. But like, say it's, you recently, and I say recently in a very relative term, but like you did the wagon over at Max's, right?
Yeah.
And like, that might not have been what you normally do.
True.
But you probably had a decent time doing it.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, you could gamble that and go, well, if I spend 3 days doing this, yes, I'm doing something I might necessarily not do, but it's also 3 days hanging out with my buddy.
I think that's also the fluidity of where you need to be at freelance. You can't be so stubborn that you put up walls and blinders, because you'll miss opportunities too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you have to, even if something doesn't seem like it's a good fit, how someone talks to you or treats you through email or phone conversation can kind of move the needle a little bit. Someone's super nice and respectful. You kind of, all right, let's give this a try and see where it goes.
And there is a way to respond and also do it to where you are in control of the situation.
Yeah.
Even if it's something you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Because you can word it and you can say, okay, yeah, I'll do this. We're going to do it. You know what I mean? I'm willing to do this, this, and this. And that's it.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all relationships, and we all want to work with people because it's how we make a living. It's just finding the right people that are looking for what you're doing, so that are really enthusiastic about what you do, so that you can do the best job for them possible. Everybody wins, almost no matter what the cost is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So moving forward to right now, present time.
Yeah. So to finish up that part of the story, huge job, great big art installation in a car collection that paid me and the people that I brought on really, really well, and that created for me a whole lot of freedom. I thought I could take a few years off of work, or I can just start saying no more to the things that I don't want and just focus on what I do want.
Mm-hmm.
I had enough background money to where I don't need to say yes to anything else anymore. So you sort of back away from the situation. You kind of go, all right. And everybody can frame their minds this way. I know it's a little pie in the sky because everybody's financial situation is different. You kind of go, all right, if I had all the money that I needed, whatever that amount is, the baseline covered every single month, what would I actually spend my time doing?
Right.
And because it's a good way to soul search, maybe what I'm chasing isn't exactly the right thing. And some people, the answer is nothing. I don't want to do anything. I don't think that's a bad answer either.
Yeah, no.
Just be honest
I
with
get
yourself.
it.
Yeah, Chelsea is all the time. I'm like, so what do you want to do? She works so much. You know? I'm like, what do you want to do? Because I'm time off whenever I want. And I'm like, I want to get out and do something. And she's like, I just want to lay on the couch and do this. And I'm like, it took me a little while to realize like that's cool. Like that's okay.
Yeah. That's true. Because everybody's different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think that's a really good headspace to be in. And like once you can get there, it'll make everything else kind of go a little smoother.
Yeah, and I get that it sounds like, okay, you had a lot of money, so that obviously creates a lot of freedoms for you. But I'm still really realistic about cost and how I spend time. I still want to be doing something every day.
Mm-hmm.
I still want
Well,
to be
that's your
efficient.
creative drive.
Yeah.
You got to satisfy that
So-
some way.
Yeah, so at that point, I'm like, then I'm just going to pour straight into paintings and kind of hope for the best and let social media feedback guide me a little bit. Because what I do right now is even a whole lot different than a year ago.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it's important to adjust a little bit as you go. So again, I realize it sounds like, oh, you have a lot of money, then of course you can do whatever you want. There's people that get a lot of money and freaking run out of it really quick.
No, for sure. Yeah.
So the goal is to keep filling that.
And
Yeah.
battles are like short and long.
True.
So what you want to do could be just that day.
Yeah.
Or it
Yeah.
could be a year long, or it could be a lifelong thing.
And the thing is, especially where I was at right then, I was totally okay because I've been in this spot a bunch of times in life of having $0, and you build from there. You always figure it out. If you're used to it, it's not really stressful at all. So I thought, if I spend all my money trying to do this and it doesn't work, at least I tried. I really, really tried.
Now this art installation thing that you were talking about,
Yeah.
so that was a job that you completed,
Yeah.
and now you're doing the paintings.
Yeah, I was doing paintings at the same time.
Okay.
But that created just a bigger buffer in life,
Mm-hmm.
which again I realize not everybody has, but it just gave me, after doing all the other art stuff for the better part of 8 years, the mix of things, I just thought, well, now I can really focus on the one thing and at least throw in. Again, I was okay if it didn't work out, but I knew, because social media is like primary marketing for me, I would really need to pour a year into it to see. But I already knew that I wasn't bad at the artwork. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, you're far from that.
Well, even at the time, I didn't think I was doing stuff that was bad necessarily. It's just there's a lot of automotive artists. There's a lot of people you can buy stuff from. What's the edge? How do you stand out? And social media is really more where I leverage that, because there's a lot that goes into making good content specifically. But yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts. But I think at the core, you just think about, if I had everything taken care of, if I moved back in with my parents, whatever the deal is, what would be the thing that I would chase? And just put your focus there. When you spread yourself so thin amongst dreams about, I got to maintain a part-time job so that I can, that I can chasing the dream part is not enough time to put enough effort into it to see a return on what you're trying to do. It's not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're trying to win small battles to get.
That's true. You can move the needle.
Yeah, to move the needle, and then also depending on how much time you give yourself to move that needle.
That's true. You got to be really generous with yourself.
Yeah.
I found that at the end of working at that shop, where I was starting to do renderings here and there for other shops, and I was also doing like traveling pinstriping stuff just around Southern California. I was so split on time between everything that I was really doing a bad job of all of it.
Oh, mm-hmm.
I wasn't sleeping as well, so I was showing up to work to sand cars, I was there physically, but I wasn't as like mentally active and participating in the way that I should. I wasn't as focused on that job, because it's not possible to spread yourself amongst that focus. No matter how much coffee and Red Bull you have, it's just eventually you're going to burn out.
Right.
And when you hit burnout, you feel like whatever that thing is you're doing right in that moment is what caused that burnout. Because that's what it feels like.
So now,
Yeah.
your day-to-day life is you paint,
That's it.
and then you sell that painting.
Correct.
Okay. So you paint, take photos of it, take video of it type thing.
Yeah.
And then you put and now do you have, are you finding it's return people buying your stuff, or is it a lot of new people? Where are you at in that space?
So it's mixed. Early, it was a little bit more regular, which was nice. And it's like repeat buyers. And there still is. Especially the genre of cars and vehicles that I moved to now is more like Porsche, Ferrari, which is really more of my long-term passion to begin with. But I think working in the hot rod world for so long, I don't think people really knew that about me. But that's okay.
Do you have anyone that bought a $20 print from you 7 years ago, and then they ask you, hey, how much is that now? And they go, whoa, that's a little different.
It's a little
No,
different.
they just stopped responding. Yeah.
You just answer with no.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I actually don't sell prints anymore.
I was going to say, yeah, so that part again, that's
a
part
big
that
change
went
that
away.
I made as well.
Yeah, and when
So,
did that start?
I did almost a year ago.
Okay.
Because we were selling prints. I was working with a team on that specifically, and that was going okay. It wasn't bad. That was another like long-term thing because we'd always done them in-house. So it was done on demand, which put me in charge of the printing, the quality control, the packing, the shipping, and even for doing as many years as I have, it's like 30 extra part-time jobs.
Yeah.
Ink is really expensive. Paper's really expensive. Printers are really expensive. Everything's really expensive. It's really hard to make money on prints in that way unless you're selling serious volume. And I never really had that much appeal. We could get people to buy prints, but not in a huge volume.
And mailing them is another process.
It's a whole other process.
Yeah.
You know, between creating labels or going to the post office, it's literally 30 more people's full-time job.
Yeah.
Everything that you're doing is taking you away from the thing you should be doing.
Yeah.
This is somebody else's job. So that worked okay for a while. Prints to me was never really made that much of a dent in income, but I thought early on it was good for more people to have versions of the artwork
Like
then
access to it without spending.
Right. Yeah. So
my
kind of
originals weren't
everybody.
expensive in the early days anyways. But at least especially with some of the stuff that I was doing, it had more broad appeal, so it $20-$30 is a lot more accessible, which is good. The problem is that when you change over into a different class of vehicle, say Porsche, Ferrari, below a certain price is too cheap.
Oh, I see.
Now it's trash.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Now
yeah.
it's not worth anything because why is it so cheap? Just like you buy a project car or a car that looks nice and it's probably too good to be true. Maybe there's a reason, maybe there's not. But your audience and your appeal within that market changes, one, based on cost specifically and based on what you're doing. The hot rod and the truck world didn't move over with me seamlessly to the Porsche Ferrari world. Not in terms of cost and interest. And I'm good with that. It's all good.
How are you with handling, because you're very good at responding to Instagram
I
comments.
try.
Now I know you've grown.
Yes.
Your following has grown. Do you still try to stay on top of that?
Every single, yep. When I post something, so I usually just post once a week now, at least one new painting. I'll say I'm posting Friday morning. I'll set aside a few hours just to be on Instagram for a few hours straight.
With the changeover from what you were doing to now, which is very similar but just a different thing, are the comments mostly positive still?
I still get a lot of criticism, but I mean it's just numbers game at that point. Yeah.
It's just a volume of people that consume your content. You're gonna have that.
You're gonna get more. Yeah.
You're never not.
It still hurts. Don't get me wrong. I'm like, okay.
Does speaking about that thing specifically, do people ever trip that like when you finish a painting and it looks great and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do something else, and you paint over it to do something else? Do you get a lot of people who trip on that?
People are like, oh, you could have sold that to me for less. Not a
No,
chance.
yeah.
Not a
You're like,
chance.
no, man.
Everyone thinks if you're painting over something, oh, you could have just sent that to me, or you could have made me a deal on it. I could have, and 3 years ago, me would have. Today, me is not interested. This didn't sell. That means no one is interested.
Okay, so that's the process. It didn't sell.
That's it.
Do you give yourself a certain time?
Yeah, nowadays is a lot different than before. Some of the more recent ones that you see where I'm painting over something is actually the second attempt at that painting.
Oh,
so
really?
The first one didn't go well, and I like the redo to be part of that same canvas's story.
I was gonna say there's probably not many that don't sell.
At this point, paintings usually sell either the day before, the night before, or within an hour of posting.
Wow,
I have nothing here for sale.
That's really
the
cool.
only thing I have is whatever I start on next.
That's really cool.
What do you know what you're starting on next? Do you just have an idea?
I have a general idea. I try to alternate between cars and colors a little bit, and I do have commissions and requests that I have said yes to. And I just kind of carefully weave things so that I don't have a bunch of commissions back to back. If I do a commission, I follow the John Mayer's strategy: one for them, one for me, one for them, one for me. Keeps things balanced. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that makes sense. So you're not always doing Ferrari, Porsche.
Yeah, try not to. But if it's a commission, I kind of go, all right, I can make an exception to weave in another. I do this car because this would be the next routine thing for me. The thing that's really tricky about doing anything that's really creative, full time, is you do need to be really like on yourself about scheduling and how you spend your time. If I only did what I wanted, that would be a little bit too fluid. Now that's most of what I do. I do even do commissions the way that I want them, but there's still an expectation from the person that's spending money as far as time, as far as communication, which is like something that I'm always working on. I'm not perfect at communicating or anything like that. So something we can always get better on. But if you're too casual with your business, it will read that way through everything that you do.
So there's almost you have to work at your craft. You have to work at the balance just as much as your craft.
Totally.
Yeah.
You got to keep yourself in check. You got to let, the people that aren't happy with stuff or the failures, you don't have to let them destroy you, but you should let that be a good reflection point of what can I do differently to keep this from happening. Some people are just more difficult, and that's just the nature of the thing. And that's okay. Just say no to that person next time. But there's a lesson to be learned about in every single step.
Yeah.
The successes and the failures.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself like now you know what you want to do, you're doing it and it's working, but at some points throughout like your social media journey, did you find yourself kind of like, whether it was known or unknown, kind of like just doing stuff because like, oh well, people like this, so I'm going to do this?
Yes, and even now I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Okay.
My job is to sell artwork. If I know that people like this, that gives me a lot of data. I can work from that. I can put this on the list of, okay, this color, this composition, this car, something about this appealed. Now, something to get millions of views, I mean, you guys know this, viral success is not, there's data parameters that you can set up as a best case scenario, but at the end of the day, the algorithms are out of our control.
Right.
So you can set yourself up for as much success as you think, but it's still out of our control. So you want to lean into those things as much as possible. Now, it's not necessarily to say that I'll keep doing the same things, but if a car that I do does not go over well, that tells me everything that I need to do. I'm not going to do it twice to suffer again.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's just not necessary. Now, hopefully it sells, and that's good. And in that realm, something that I tell people about what I do all the time is that in terms of views, likes and comments and stuff, as long as the artwork sold, I don't care if it's one view and that one view sold it. My job is to sell the painting, not gain views. I don't make money from views. I make money from selling artwork. And that is also part of why I decided not to offer prints anymore. I no longer want there to be an alternative to how you get my artwork. This is it.
Okay. That's a good point. So make it kind of like almost a little more exclusive.
It's a little bit more exclusive, and I realize that can kind of take certain people out of the possibility of it. I can be really, really flexible with sizing and pricing. I'll always work with somebody that's really enthusiastic about getting a piece, because it's not the end of the world if I don't get paid that day for that piece. It's not that critical. I always want artwork to go to a good home. But playing the print game actually, I think, subtracts part of the other part of the art. Now, that said, I know tons of artists that sell originals and sell tons of prints too. These are Disney artists. These are character artists. Those are broad appeal. Car artwork is such a narrow niche to begin with.
I think we talk about that quite a bit too. We don't. In the automotive world, we think
it's big.
We think everyone likes custom cars.
Of course.
Right.
When most people have cars to get from point A.
They don't care.
And it's a Chevy Cruze or a Nissan Versa. And they are insanely happy with something else in their life.
Yeah.
So we have to remember that quite a bit.
Totally. And I think that's a great way to frame being grateful to even have this as an occupation. That there's enough of an audience of people that are interested in cars, car culture, to even be interested in the things that we offer. So I'm super grateful. And that's part of why I still respond to every single comment, as many messages as I can, because I can't do what I do without everyone else
liking what
supporting,
you do.
Even if it's the likes and the views, it still counts to me as support. And And I'm super, super appreciative of that because I'm like everybody else. We all started with 0 followers and 0 everything.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to grow from that, I think I cannot do that without the people who have left comments, who have left messages.
And even if they're the ones that will never buy a painting,
Doesn't matter to me.
It just kind of
Still
keeps
just
it
grateful.
going.
Yeah.
their comment might have made that show up in someone else's
Sure.
algorithm that might buy one in the future.
You never know. There's so many moving parts that I think a lot of social media creators, it's weird with artists specifically, you know, all right, I got 10,000 followers, like fame goes people's heads so quick. And you go, well, what if this drops, the floor of this drops off? What do you do if all these people aren't still here?
Yeah.
Or you give some interview where you're a freaking prick and everybody decides, oh wow,
Oh, yeah, like,
this
oh,
guy.
yeah.
Well, it's happened. We've seen it happen with social media networks like Vine. When Vine came out, people were making a lot of money,
Yeah.
and then it just stopped.
Then it's gone.
Just added.
And I always say, what happens if YouTube stops?
Sure.
Because, and the response is usually, well, YouTube's never going to stop. They're too big. And it's like,
no,
no,
everything.
you
everything.
don't know what's going to happen.
changes.
Yeah, we can't really predict anything.
Like, you can't. You know what I mean? There might be something similar to YouTube that is always there, but
Yeah.
their model of pay, you know, and how they do it,
It's already changing all the time.
it changes all the time.
Yeah.
So like, if that's solely what you rely on, you know, like all the like influencer type things,
Sure.
and you're just relying on
If you're
them
monetizing on views, that's volatile.
and followers. It's
Yeah,
almost like
that's true.
followers is like the new statistic to success.
Yeah.
And
It does have a value point, especially when
Yes.
you're talking to big companies. It does give you some credibility.
Yeah.
Although a lot of
I
people,
think it almost
lie.
is a more credible thing than anything else.
it kind of makes sense. I think there's a big disparity when you see an account that seems big, a couple 100,000 followers, but their views. Are
Yeah,
really
you could always
narrow.
tell. Yeah.
Like, okay, either you're not putting out content that people really jive with, or you've bought your followers or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to play the game, so I'm not going to criticize anybody. But when big companies, manufacturers are looking for you, the first thing that they do is look at your social media.
Yeah.
Always first. So and that includes YouTube.
Yeah.
Because that's like, if they're interested in having you do something, they need to know that you already have a broad audience, because the expectancy is that you're going to share it with them as well, and create some range. So being somebody helps, but if you don't have the views to kind of back up, there's a lot of data to cover. And one parameter isn't enough to give you credibility. At the end of the day, I still go back to, it doesn't really matter the size of those things if you're not good at what you actually do.
That's what I was gonna say. Like that, and that's the other part of it is like you were saying, if you took away all that stuff, what are you left with? Well, you're left with the thing that you're creating.
Sure.
And if you don't, make that good, then they're gonna be like, well,
There's like if social media went away now, you would still have a painting,
Thank
but you would
goodness.
just have to go to a gallery to sell it
Yeah.
versus online.
Yeah.
If social media went away for you, people still need to wear clothes. They still need T-shirts. The artist that made the art wants T-shirts. He's not going to make T-shirts. He needs people like you. Me, I don't have anything. I don't make anything.
well, I mean that's not true. You get because like you could get picked up by a magazine. It doesn't have to.
It's a joke.
Yeah,
People will still want. Without social media, photography is still a thing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and that's
Maybe
why
may be more of a thing without social media, actually.
Yeah, because they're exactly.
Yeah, because we go back to the old way of newspapers and stuff. But yeah, I think that's what happens a lot. Like when I talk to people about like they ask like, well, how do you start, or how do I get into this, or how do I start a YouTube channel, or anything like that. And if you go like search out, like if you went on YouTube, like how do I start a YouTube channel? What do I do? One of the very first things they tell you is have a product to sell. Because like you were saying, if you're relying completely on views and monetization through views and sharing and stuff, that's not going to make it. You still need something at the end of the day that's like tangible that you can give to somebody, So.
Or good information.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Always really valuable.
But that's still a product.
tangible,
But it's still a product.
something.
But
You're
it
still
could-
giving them something.
that translates to a tangible product.
Yeah.
Because like say you want to do 3D printing. We were just at our buddy's house earlier today. He does 3D printing, and maybe the guy that he got his information from, it wasn't a tangible thing, but he turned that information into a tangible.
Right, but that was but they still gave you something.
Yeah, teaching is value for sure.
But then again, I think it's kind of easy to beat up on influence. Like this day and age, it's kind of easy to beat up on those guys, even though they're trying to.
yeah, I mean, those people are. Those people
they're
are
there
working
for our
too.
Yeah.
scrolling enjoyment.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
definitely.
Like I spend quite a bit of time scrolling when
We
I'm
all
laying
do.
in bed before I
Yeah.
go to sleep, and thankful to them. They make me laugh, and I share it with my friends, and we have a good time.
This is kind of like a little weird offshoot thought that I just recently had. Like, I'm just doing the same thing. I'm laying there, I'm scrolling through TikTok, and I'm just scrolling through people creating stuff. Like, they're not actors, they're not musicians, they're just people making these things that I'm consuming. It was a really weird abstract thought that I had, and I can't say, this is what I think, or it's a bad thing or a good thing. It was just this random thought that popped into my head that's like, some girl, on the other side of the country made this kind of funny joke, and I laughed, and it was like, kind of really an abstract thing.
It's almost like we've turned our entertainment, what we watch for entertainment, from hour-long shows to half-hour-long shows to 20-second shows. These are TV shows that are 20 seconds to 1 minute long, and we're like, there's the start, there's the plot, and then it's over, and that's move on.
And honestly, there's a lot of creative challenge in trying to make something digestible in that amount of time.
Yes.
I thought at the beginning of Reels and early TikTok stuff, I'm not on TikTok anymore, I thought probably the same thing as a lot of videographers. For one, why would I shoot in this aspect ratio? Because nothing really fits that way naturally. And how do you make something good in that you spent days on in 30 seconds or less? Yeah. But there's an art to it.
And there's also a consumer base for it.
Yeah.
And that's why I said it's like, it's easy to beat up on an influencer talking about, talking about their, pumpkin spice latte. But at the end of the day, they created something. The person probably who is complaining about it probably didn't create anything that day.
And we're consuming it. That's all the value.
And we're consuming it. Yeah, definitely.
And we're turning it in. It's turned into income for someone.
Oh, for sure.
Something, yeah.
It's all very interesting.
It is.
And it's easier to beat up on someone than it is to understand.
That's the point
to work through the critical thinking portion of it. I think.
Yeah, I think an influencer lifestyle probably looks a lot easier than it is.
Oh, 100. Yeah, ask anyone to go out there and start dancing.
Yeah,
film it, edit it, put it to music, and make it.
And we have 5 more days to do today.
Yeah. I was in the store the other day, and it was like a Pier 1 Imports type store. There's just like random stuff everywhere, and this girl comes walking up in a purple skirt, and I was like, this is very random for a Wednesday to be in the middle of the day for this, right? And then another girl was walking behind her filming her, and I was like, oh, they're making a TikTok where this girl is going to review the store.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, I wonder how many times she did that today. And then they're going to go home, and they're going to edit those, and then they're going to put them up.
Yeah.
That's actually something I bring up with a lot of people that think that it must be really impossible to do something like artwork for a living. I always tell people there are YouTubers and TikTok stars out there making millions just filming their life. That means to me anything is possible.
That's a good way to look at it.
I mean, the difference is they're putting in a lot of work. They're showing up, they're editing. There's a lot of work to doing what they're doing. But those are the people that they're grinding. They're really doing it.
Yeah.
It looks easy, but in my mind, if that is a professional level thing that you can do, everything is possible from there.
Yes. I think also anything that's forced in nature, like there's a lot of influencers that try to force things to be funny. That's true. And you can tell, and it's not good.
Yeah.
And so like if it's a natural thing, and even if it's the cheesiest thing ever,
it still works.
It still works. It's still like, you're like, oh, that was cute, or that was funny, or whatever. You know what I mean?
And thank you for that 30-second interaction. Moving on.
That's funny.
Yeah. No, I think.
Do you have any questions for us on success? By the way?
As we are sitting in front of his Ferrari, he's going to ask us about success. We're going to go get in the old Mavi.
The old Mavi. Isn't that thing brand new?
It is brand new.
That's something.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But actually, that was the next thing I want to talk about is your cars. Like, you got some awesome cars. Like,
oh, thank you.
Tell us about them.
Spectrum of cars.
Yeah.
I've got a weird mix, that's for sure. What I like. So we got the Ferrari here, the 348 Spider, the childhood dream car, even though I would have been too young to know what it was. But still, love this car. There's a 991 911 outside. and the Roadster, the Ducati, and the 401 in here.
Oh, the silver one in the corner is yours?
The blue one.
Oh, the blue one in the corner is yours. Oh, that's cool. That's a bad car.
I love that car. That's what I drove this morning.
Oh, cool. Oh, okay. Right on. That's that. You were talking about that, about like, because your Volkswagen has
No roof.
no roof,
That's
permanent no roof.
What did you call that car this morning? That's your normal car?
Yeah.
That's your only
Normal
normal
car.
car you have?
And when he
blue
said that,
car,
when he
yes.
said that, I'm like, oh, they must have like a Camry or something,
That's what my lady thought I was going to get. When the Roadster broke down last year, and I was just like, you know what? I just need something normal. And I think Katie thought I was going to get like a Camry or Corolla. And I was like, what do you think of this? And she said, it's a 911. We've already had a 911. I'm like, yeah, but this one's blue. And
What year is that one?
2013.
So is that, I know we've had, I don't know if me and you had this discussion before, but we had a discussion about like cars that have too much computer input that you weren't into very much.
Maybe
I was talking to Max and he was speaking for you.
That sounds like a very Max. That
No,
sounds
but
like a very Max
there
thing.
There would definitely be a time where I would say that would be totally true. The difference is I had the variety that I have here. Since this is entirely analog, gated stick, manual steering, manual brakes, no, it doesn't even have ABS.
The
No
Porsche's
airbag.
The Porsche's this.
The opposite.
Also easy to drive in the city.
The Porsche is going to start every single time. It's going to get me there. It's going to look very, very nice. It has air-conditioned seats. I just think as time goes on, you're like, you know what? A little bit of luxury is nice.
Yeah.
When you're used to hot rodding every day or taking a motorcycle, you never show up somewhere looking like you did when you left.
Mm-hmm.
And for professional meetings, that's not great.
Mm-hmm.
Some the Ferrari's sort of over the top to show up to places in generally. And I love 911s and Porsches, and I had a bunch of them. It's just that's the one that I have right now. But I go up to LA and San Diego regularly. I want to get there and back comfortably and sit in traffic. I don't mind a PDK transmission.
Now, just as an off-the-wall question.
Sure.
Would you ever consider anything electric? Is it that too detached from the soul of a vehicle, or is that because an electric car is like the ultimate city driving car?
Yeah.
It's quiet, it's comfortable.
Yeah.
It almost drives itself to a point,
Yeah.
but then it does take away.
The
driving
aspect of
experience.
it.
So is like the Porsche the perfect mix, or have you ever?
I wouldn't say that Porsche even leans that far.
No.
I'm not against electric cars. I can't say that there's anything out that really appeals to me or excites me. I mean, what they do performance-wise is really, really amazing. But they're so much like an appliance. They're an iPhone.
They're very just tech. They're just they're so far tech.
We haven't gotten a driver-focused electric car, I think. Now, granted, there's supercars and sports cars, but I don't think we've got something like mass market. We don't have the
Like an accessible.
Yeah, we don't have
fun,
the electric sports car.
Right.
Yet
Yeah.
that
What do you think is is the Taycan the closest to
Taycan's
it?
pretty good. It's a four-door sedan, so it does its own thing differently. Lucy, hey, relax over there.
Calm down.
Stop. Taycan's really good. My wife, she's got a RAV4 Prime. It's a plug-in hybrid. The second fastest vehicle that Toyota makes, apparently.
And one of the most expensive after a markup
Oh my
because
God.
they are
Oh, really?
a RAV4. Like, try to find one.
Uh-huh.
Did you recently get it?
2 years ago.
Was it hard?
Recent enough. Yes,
Recent
it was.
enough.
We went to many places to find one that the first place we went to, and the guy was giving us the numbers. I was like, dude, I can go get a McLaren for this. This is
Oh, wow.
ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
The markups on those things are crazy,
That's
but they're a
pretty good.
great vehicle.
They are great, actually, as it turns out. They did that system really, really well. I think it blends the best of both things.
Toyota's great at the hybrid system,
Yeah.
but the RAV4 hybrid is such a good.
That's like the one.
Well, yeah, it's just the most sensible. It's
It kind of checks all the boxes correctly,
Yeah.
especially for size and performance. I think if Porsche made a plug-in hybrid 911, I'd be there.
yeah.
Totally. Because
Do
it's
you-
best of both.
Do you think do you think everything's going to be a crossover SUV type vehicle soon?
I think kind of like, no. I think there'll be a wave of it, and then there will be a wave out of it. Kind of like how everything went small displacement turbo like that. And now it's sort of falling off the end because all the manufacturers copy each other to some degree. They won't. Manufacturers, despite what people think and what they say in the comments when they're commenting on Ford's new car, they don't build things based on people's comments on Facebook posts and Instagram posts. They only build what they think they can sell a lot of. So
And that's the point. We were having an EV conversation a while ago, and that's the point we made.
So that's the
I
difference
said
between a lot
the
of details.
consumer drives
Exactly.
change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even with we were talking about electric cars, even with we'll take California, for example, that wants to ban the new sale of gas vehicles by a certain date.
Yeah.
People get mad at that, but technically the consumer's really driving that fact because
it wouldn't happen without that.
No, and it also wouldn't happen if you didn't, like driving by a gas station and watching the gas go down and up, down and up. And then it's time for you to buy a car. You're going to buy the one that you don't have to stress on, and that might be this. So,
and that may be in our bubble, that may be a California specific problem. And I see this a lot with car content related to California. The other 49 states react differently than the people who actually live here in social media.
Yeah, definitely.
The things that get blown out of proportion barely touch the average person here. I'm going to be honest. We had
that conversation this morning. We have a lot of similar conversations.
Yeah.
when you travel and spend time in different states, like we do quite a bit, you get that.
Yeah.
Where are you from? Oh, dang. Oh, blah. They just instantly say what they've heard.
Of course.
And you're just like, oh, yeah, there's that there, but it's not like...
Yeah,
it
doesn't affect me.
That big or that... Not 200% of that, and not everywhere.
Or like you said, affecting your everyday. You know?
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff is a little bit more peripheral. I mean, I don't think it matters if you're paying $5 for gas here, and that seems like a lot, or if you're paying $3 for gas in Alabama, and that seems like a lot. Your a lot is scaled to wherever you are, no matter what.
Right.
And I found that when I lived in St. Louis. I was there for a couple of years. I had an apartment there. The only time I had an apartment. Most of the time, I slept in my car for the 2 years. I had an apartment.
What kind of car was it?
My 61 Buick Special.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I had an apartment downtown St. Louis. It was $500 a month. I was a full-time painter at a shop. I couldn't afford it more than 3 months.
Really?
Yeah, and it seems like $500 wouldn't be a lot, and being a full-time car painter would be a great paying gig. It really depends on what area you're in. Your income really does scale based on a lot of factors based on where you are. Now, cost of living here might be high, or a lot of people say cost of living here is high. I'm from Washington, D.C. This is nothing. At least there's a beach here. Taxes are different in every area, so it's hard to take your personal experience somewhere. Just like I'll see, a house listing in Kentucky is a great deal. They're landlocked, and there's no beach anywhere. It is a great deal if you take your California income and you move it there.
Yes.
If you're a freelancer, you're fine. If you're looking for that same job there, so it's not apples to apples everywhere. But it looks that way on
that's the
social
problem
media.
is it's not apples to apples everywhere, but everybody tries to make it. But
it makes for good conversation.
Well, it also it goes back to that everyone's different, and so we shouldn't really judge based on the differences.
I don't assume that anybody wants to live like I love living here, but I don't assume that I need to convince everybody else how great California is.
That's true.
I'm stoked to be here. I hope everybody finds a place that they're that stoked with.
Yes.
That's a good way to put it. That's sort of the long and the short and the bookend of it.
So back to the next wave of cars. So you think
crossover.
Do you think the crossover thing is going to come and go? Because there's it almost just seems like that's everything.
I think the broad appeal of it will work for a while, just like everything sort of does. But in the same way that now people are super stoked to have an old Suburban, because it's this amount of space for this amount of money. It's the problem with manufacturing vehicles. And most designers that really work in the industry, or especially engineers, are aware of this. You're constantly splitting the difference. There's compromises to everything. So are you getting the best version of? It's like 60% good of all these elements because we're trying to appeal to mass market. Now, sometimes what that ends up breeding is a more focused vehicle down the road, or a brand to kind of go, especially in the case of now, kind of go, all right, maybe in 10 years, Ford will be like, we're going to go back to Ford Classic. We're just going to offer trucks and sedans and sports cars. We're going to get back to the basics. Yeah. So everything can come in a wave, and it can also work to their advantage with marketing too. Because if you come out with something new, you have everybody who's old thinks it's the stupidest thing that's ever come out. You should go back to making the Corvette the way it should be. So that is inevitable, but you're bringing in a whole new set of people, but you get to play into a new set of nostalgia in 10 years for another set of people. That's kind of, so everything has to work in waves, not only because people's interests are different, and of course younger and younger people that are buying stuff, their expectations of vehicles is so much different. I think one thing that is going to be hard to tell is going to work really well, especially functionally with time, is giant computer screens in these cars.
I don't
I just don't think they're going to live that long.
I sound like the old guy now, right?
I so do I get it.
But Tesla did it.
Yeah.
And then every other manufacturer started. But the problem with other manufacturers is it doesn't look like it belongs there. It's just
some are stuck on, some are integrated.
Yeah. There are some, like Mercedes is doing really nice. There's it's the whole thing. It's not just this computer slapped into the dashboard. It's like it is more integrated.
Yeah, I don't know that an idea like that will live long. I think give it a handful of years, and Mercedes goes, "We're bringing back the knobs," and you're like, "Fuck yeah!"
Oh yeah, knobs. You have to have knobs. Yeah. Physical knobs are so important. I think a lot of car manufacturers are learning that though. I don't have I have a Ford Maverick.
Yeah.
It's nothing. But I mean, like I've listened to a lot of podcasts where they talk about that.
Yeah.
Where their cars did go away they went to the screens and then they're like, oh, we actually need a volume button.
We need some basics here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's forwards and backwards. So I think that's how all design trends go. They want to skew one way, especially on a full range of vehicles, because you kind of, as a focused brand, you kind of go, all right, for the next 5-6 years, we're gonna develop all our technology this way, so that all of our range seamlessly looks like this. We don't offer the Tacoma as the only one with a thing that's got buttons. We offer everything with a screen, so that our entire product range looks uniform.
Yeah.
And then we can bring back Classic Coke later on, and then people can be excited about buttons like it's this new thing. That's how marketing works.
There's so much. I would love to just go on the inside of it, you know what I mean? Because like even the people, what they're developing now, and the research they're doing now is for like 20 years from now.
We don't even know yet.
Yeah, they've already made certain decisions and certain trends that are going to go one way.
Now it is up to consumers to decide what they like, but it is also up to the branding and the marketing to sell it to people in a way that this is hip and cool, this is the future. But the future is about 3-year span. And then people go, all right, well, what's coming next? Now that this, there's not a new model necessarily every year like there used to be. I mean, how long has Toyota made the same 4Runners and Tacomas like they're essentially the same, or even the Nissan, the G35, like the latest version we got.
Is that retiring soon?
I don't know, but seeing the newest version, I went, oh wow.
It's the
like
same.
Yeah.
And they made a big old reveal about it. And
it's pretty impressive. I thought, well, it's cool that, and I mean, there's a lot of inbuilt support for it, so I can see why. But when you launch like that, you're sort of setting up an expectation that you're not going to meet right away. You have a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah.
Which, it's a great car, so why not? If it works, it works. But I don't think many people expect it to go that way. Kind of like the Supra.
BMW
debacle.
Like you either are okay with it and you're like, this is awesome, or you're just like, you hate it, and I personally like it.
It's growing on me.
I'm the latter where I don't hate it. It's not like but it just like the Toyota makes so many cool motors.
Yeah.
They could have. I don't know, but that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's but BMW also makes amazing motors.
That's true.
So it's like, but I get it. I think it's. I actually commend Nissan quite a bit for the Z thing, because they made it's their own thing. They didn't rely on anything else. But I'm fascinated with new cars. I'm also fascinated when they try to bring the nostalgia back, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And and then the opinions, I like watching people's opinions and how they talk.
What's amazing about nostalgia vehicles now, say like the Bronco and the Defender, is these are so expensive.
Oh yeah.
To buy the nostalgia, you're parting with $100,000.
Yeah,
but they also make prints like the Bronco 2
That's
Sport.
true.
That is true. That's the print.
Yeah.
The print is the Bronco Sport.
When you see them on the road, especially here because there's a high volume of stuff like that, you just kind of like good for you. You got one.
Yeah.
You got what you could get.
Yeah, because I'm the type where I look at the Bronco and I really like it. I think they did really, really good.
It's cool.
And but I'm like, but I'm not going to buy one.
Yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I had the money, maybe, but at the same time, I'm just like, no, I don't. I'm just like, congratulations, you got what you wanted.
Yeah,
it's like one of those things where you're like trying oh, that's pretty cool, and then you just kind of move on.
Kind of forget about it.
Yeah, like a G-Wagon.
Yeah, like a G-Wagon. Yeah, that's very
a lot
similar.
of G-Wagons here.
Yeah, a lot of G-Wagons, a lot of Broncos. Notice around here there's a lot of Raptors.
Dude, there's a lot. Orange County feels like when you move here, they must give you some type of Porsche. Like it's automatic. Everybody here has one. It's the best way to blend into a parking lot.
That's funny.
It's ridiculous.
Southern California is very different region to region.
Yeah.
It's a very different region to region, but at least, Broncos are one way, or G-Wagons or something else, and Porsches and stuff like that. But at least it's all cool. That's like one thing. Traveling and going to all these states, like on the way here, we probably passed a couple supercars, some really cool off-road stuff, like all of these different things, and you're kind of like, oh, that's cool. But as we travel and go to different places, and you're driving. There's like nothing cool.
It does get pretty thin when you hit the middle of the country.
Yeah, just about. About. I noticed that. I noticed, like, you know, I noticed that, like, because I'll do that a lot. Like, I'll just see interesting things, take a quick video, make it a story. And I started noticing other people have been doing it. But I do notice that the people I know in places like the Midwest or the South or, you know, those type of places, when they find something and they're like, oh, this is cool, I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure about that?
A Grand Am? How many miles does it have on it?
But then again, hold on. I'm going to tell on myself because, like, that's rude of me to say that. But I'm also going to tell on myself because if I see like a 93 Accord wagon, I'm all.
We all like what we like.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And
I get
wagons are cool. If the trend could swing back to wagons.
Oh yeah.
I would not.
It may. I think wagons is probably a more predictable conclusion to the crossover.
Oh, wouldn't that be funny? You just said that full circle.
Yeah.
Like things come out and then they come back. Like we're gonna be back in station
only
wagons.
lower. That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's easy to get into.
They've tried.
You're
like Acura tried.
Yeah.
More recently, Buick tried.
That's right.
Buick made a wagon, and I didn't know this, and it came across my timeline, and I was like, what? And I started reaching. I was like, this is a cool car, but Buick made it.
That makes it slightly less cool in some
way.
ways. Porsche makes a well, it's more of like a shooting brake, but it does a 4-door. It's close to what we would call a station wagon. It's sort of estate-like, but it's really cool. But I have been told that it didn't sell well in the United States. There's just something about that shape.
I think SUVs killed the wagon.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't
sure.
think that's a fact, pretty much. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it always surprises me how many people around here have SUVs. It's like, it's flat here. There's no dirt. There's no mud. What are you going?
And it's one person in a Suburban.
Yeah, I know. An XLT.
Yeah. The biggest, the best.
Yeah.
That's why I love the Maverick.
The Maverick is tight.
Like, it's perfect is what it is.
Yeah.
It does 95% of what I need anything.
I mean, at the end of the day, get what you like. It just,
do what you want.
Yeah, I know. I realized.
Buy the cars you want. Buy the art.
But no matter what you do, people are going to judge you, and it'll probably be us. Like we will judge you.
Hopefully, it's
for sure. We're a little judgy.
That's all right.
all of our listeners
I think it's fine as long as it's comical, in jest.
Oh yeah, and in jest, and with a little bit of fun behind it, and also like I just did, like kind of telling on yourself sometimes.
Yeah,
you know, like you can't criticize without taking some. I can't tell you
how many times I'm like, is that a Fiero? Is that a Corvair? Like, it's like the old.
You did have a Corvair thing for a while.
Yeah, I love Corvairs. I've had Fieros too.
Yeah,
I've had a lot of crappy cars that I loved.
Yeah,
that nobody else loved. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
You know what I saw at the show last night? We were a show up by his house up in Hesperia, or Victorville, or Apple Valley, whatever.
Wherever you live.
The high desert.
And a first generation MR2 rolled in.
Damn.
Oh, that's right.
Freshly painted.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love MR2s.
Yeah, those are cool cars.
The second gen MR2s are my favorite.
Nice.
But the first gens are cool just because they're just different. They were.
Yeah.
The third gen are terrible in my opinion.
Well, the second gen was like a little more round.
It was more round and it was
Yeah.
fast. You can make them really fast.
They're good looking cars.
They were, and then I don't know what they were thinking with that third generation.
Oh yeah,
thing.
that was the weird bubbly headlight one.
I think they were front wheel drive too. Or were they? No, maybe they were.
It
rear
was
wheel
mid
drive.
engine.
No, I think they were
I don't know much
rear
about
wheel
those.
drive, but they were just not
cool.
Fast.
Yeah, they had an interesting look to them. But yeah, it's just, I mean, a lot of manufacturers sort of these days haphazardly use a recognized name on a car that probably shouldn't have it on there.
Oh man, are you talking about like the Blazer?
Yeah, shit like that.
Like that, yeah.
We were just playing.
You
to
just
people's-
missed the mark.
Yeah,
Well, the Blazer's
People
an
still buy
interesting
it.
one that I see people complain about a lot because they only think of the full size Blazer. They don't remember that Blazer also made a compact Blazer.
Yeah.
And if you made now a recent compact Blazer, it would be round just like that.
That's a good point.
But that's why I do like the Maverick and even the Bronco Sport. I don't hate because they gave it structure.
Yeah.
You know, same with like the new Tundras, the new Tacomas. They gave it, even the Land Cruisers. Do you like those? Did you see the new ones?
You was talking about the Defender, the new Defenders.
The new Defenders are the same way, but like the new Land Cruiser they just came out with.
That's right. Yeah.
Is
I
very,
believe you said Land Cruiser.
That's
Why did I say
pretty
Defender?
nostalgic.
Duh. Yeah.
But it's the same way. They went against the grain a little bit, and it has like, you know, it has got a snout, it's got a hood, it's got a windshield. It's not one motion.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's got a shape to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun watching new cars try new things, and also.
Do you see that from like an artist perspective? Like you can look at a car and you can tell, like, you know what? Oh, they put some thought into that
Sure.
one.
Most of the time, it's those people definitely went to art school or car design school because a lot of the stuff that's on the road today looks the same. because a lot of these people graduate from the same schools. They have the same teachers. They have the same. They're
really
graded on the same critique. So, and I mean, like I said, for a lot of manufacturers pull from each other inspiration, and they have for years. But there are a lot of people that come out of the same schools that get into the industry.
I never even thought about that, but you're right. And then that'd be interesting to be the teacher who was that's all me out there.
Yes, this 30 years of vehicles is because I was a professor at this school.
And I really like these type of headlights.
It's not a bad thing, but it is difficult to be in any creative field where you're assessed based on your ability for someone to say you did a good job.
Or based on sales, right? Because you're essentially, you go to like LA Art School, right? It's like the really, really big one, right?
Yeah.
So you go there. You get into a career of designing cars, and you're almost forced to draw what's going to sell.
You do have to assimilate a little bit.
Yeah.
Your expectation.
I mean, unless you go to like a, Aston Martin or anything like that, where you're given a little bit, probably big brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Creative freedom or anything like that. But, I mean, if you go to work for Toyota or Chevy or something like that, and you're just there to design the next crossover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of the concept artwork is more exciting than the production vehicle, because that's really where the artistry is before there's engineers kind of come along and find the right way mathematically to make these ideas work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably where it's fun for the artist.
Yeah.
Because their idea
plus or minus,
but their idea is to kind of go as far as they can this way, and then they're reeled back in by the manufacturer this way to where.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, it does keep you in check because.
Do you know any designers in the industry like that?
I know a lot of people that work in the industry. Yeah, people that are either retired or some young people in it. And there's a weird hierarchy kind of in that system.
Yeah.
You're not going to graduate college necessarily and become the lead designer at a major manufacturers. You work your way up. So the people that are really the lead designers have been with the company for decades and years. So you really have to earn your way up, and especially within a company, because every company has a visual identity and your ability to kind of bring that up. And a lot of it is, I guess it's different by manufacturer. There'll be a lot of, there's team designers, there's a lead designer, and you're pitching ideas, and maybe we'll use this guy's idea for this part of this guy, or they'll decide the team, everybody independently is going to come up with ideas, like the 911 996 when they went to water cooled. I think they did 3 different art teams, and then the lead designer picked, we're going to go with your idea. And so they won. That's the vehicle that went to production. So there's some competitiveness within it, which is good. But at the end of the day, you work with a manufacturer, hopefully that you like, because your job is to elevate and bring their brand look, style forward continuously, which is difficult. I think what a lot of people don't see when they're going through school, and I never went to school, but I've got glimpses from other people, is that you're more likely to be designing door handles when you get out of college than anything. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ground up work. Some people get lucky, but when it comes to design and car design, there's a billion layers to the job.
Gotcha.
So being the lead exterior designer still has a tier system, versus interior or these other exterior features. You might be the headlight guy. There's a lot of range,
which is interesting in itself. That they're like, as an artist, if you're still an artist,
definitely.
And that's just, there's so many different career paths.
There is, and you can specialize and be focused on, or say it's a company where that's the tier system. You're gonna have to go through all these before you can, prove yourself within a company.
Yeah.
You said that you didn't go to school. You didn't go to art school or anything like that?
No, I didn't even go to college.
You're completely self-taught.
I mean, as much as anyone can be self-taught, I guess.
Well, I mean,
trial and error.
Yeah.
Staring at
what I mean is,
pictures
you
of
just
other
never
people's
had
stuff?
any like formal training. You never.
Not at all.
Wow, that's really cool.
Thank you. I think the one advantage that I had to not going to college is that my overhead wasn't high when I got started. I had no college debt. And didn't start out owing anybody money, which from my point of view is easy. And then I kind of go, okay, I'm at zero baseline. The only thing that I need to do is participate in my practice regimen regularly. Mm-hmm. That's it. Make sure I'm always focused on getting better at whatever it is I'm trying to do.
Do you think that there is like some room for that formal training for some people?
I think depending on your personality type, it's more important for some people than others, because some people really need the structure of a classroom setting. But drawing fundamentally and doing paintings and then car design are equally spaced tiers. Mm-hmm. They overlap, but they're independently different skills. So yes, so depending on the field that you're going into, some formal training is really important. But I do think that, especially for art, in today's world, you could learn everything you want for free on YouTube. Why would you spend $100,000 and 4 years of your life at a school when you could really be practicing that you could do in your free time? You could practice stuff in your free time passionately for free. But some people really need a classroom structure in order to stay.
Because I have a buddy who's a comic book artist, and he was good at art, but then he needed the formal training to like understand perspectives, and he needed that. He needed he couldn't marry the two together, like his talent and the nuts and bolts on how something works, And
do you think that's where like a good instructor comes in?
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
There's probably more good than bad, I would assume.
I hope so, yeah. I like to think so.
Yeah, so they can kind of help guide that person along. I always, the college conversation comes up quite a bit, and I always try to tell people to look towards their community colleges before anything else, because usually that's the least amount of debt.
That is true.
You know what I mean? There's the quote unquote universities are.
Yeah, without a doubt. That was initially where I was going to start, was the community college in Maryland, where I was at. The problem for me was, and I tried it for all of like 6 weeks before I just went insane, is that I didn't like where I went to school and where I lived, and I was in college with the same people.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So you're just like,
this isn't working for me. This doesn't.
So you could seek out community college. There's millions of different.
I should have gone to a non-local community college. Yes, I should not have gone to the one that was closest to me.
You can kind of do the research on where a good art classes are, and then whether or not you want to live in that area.
Totally.
And that's probably.
My first trip to California actually was to an art school that I got accepted to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd never been to California before, and I got accepted to the Art Institute. I think it was Santa Ana. I don't know if it's still there. I got accepted. My mom and I flew out to check it out. And it was a couple years after I graduated high school. So I was already working in the collision industry, and already not feeling like that was where I wanted to go. Even though it seemed like steady income, you will always have a job in the collision industry if you do body and paint. But I kind of knew I wanted to design cars. So I got accepted, came out here, and thank goodness I did. And thank goodness I didn't go. So I was accepted, but it was really prohibitively expensive to come out here.
And go to school and everything like that.
Yeah, the cost of school, the cost of living and moving, even though I'm one person, it's not like I take up much space. But it would be such a big change up financially, and I didn't have the income to back that up or anything like that. But I'm still grateful for the trip, because I got to see Huntington Beach and I got to see Orange County, and I was like, I know exactly where I want to be.
Yeah, you're like, I want to be here. Yeah. It actually works. So you in the beginning of our conversation, you said that like it's important to get out where you're from to find out where you want to be,
even if you come back.
And I was going to follow that, because that's my scenario. Is I grew up here. I mean, not here in Orange County or LA or the beach. I'm out in the desert more, but I still grew up in this area, being exposed to this stuff. But it was important for me to go to the other places to realize, oh yeah, I like it here.
Sometimes it's better. Yeah.
So,
but have you guys experienced Surprise, Arizona?
Yes, I have.
I mean, you can't beat it.
We were there a month ago, and I was dying.
Strip malls.
Is there?
Yeah, chain restaurants.
Is it on rank with like Pahrump, Nevada? Or?
It's a little taller.
Speaking of Pahrump, we've spent time in Pahrump.
Yeah, we have.
There's a car show there that we
hilarious.
have spent time there.
Yeah.
Wow, you and the other 10 people.
I will rank Surprise above Pahrump.
Yeah, okay. I would rank
slightly below Newport Beach.
Slightly below.
I'll be honest.
Just a tad.
The only reason I even know Pahrump is a place is because of Mars Attacks, the movie.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool movie.
Landed. Otherwise, I'd have thought they just made it up.
Yeah, it does sound like a made-up name.
It does sound
Pahrump.
like a made-up name.
We were just talking to Jap and his wife yesterday about how stoked we're at because that show was usually at State Line, California.
That's right,
at those casinos right there.
There was a show our buddies throw that usually at State Line, and they moved it to Pahrump because State Line closed for a while.
Right.
Gotcha.
And we went a couple of years, and we're like, we can't wait to be back.
It was. There was definitely an effort made to make it fun, and it was fun. But
the locals were interesting.
The
locals would come up to our booth and talk to us.
Very nice.
It was very interesting.
It was interesting. Is a good way to put it. Sorry to all of us who live in Pahrump, Nevada.
It's always fun to experience different things, whether it's for a day, or if you want to experience for the rest of your life. But
there's so much variety in the entire country. I think getting pent up in one place just means you need to go see something else.
Yeah,
because there's so much to choose from.
Yeah, a lot of people say that you have to at some point in your life go out and experience it.
Like I said, even if you come back, even if you go, you know what? Actually, here's pretty good.
That's the thing is you can always come back.
You can always come back.
We have friends that moved. I have a friend. We have a friend that moved to Oklahoma recently.
Oh wow!
And he says he loves it. I think he's lying.
I think you have to say that when
we're talking about you, Dave.
No. I think you have to say that to try to convince yourself.
Well, maybe they do, obviously,
They
but
do.
I think in any big move, you have to really be in it. You got to really give it a chance. Even
That's
if you're
also what
lying
you
yourself
want,
a
right?
little
Do you want just peace and quiet and
bit.
tornadoes, or do you want?
Yeah, but at the same time, you wouldn't move somewhere and be like, "Fuck, this place sucks." I mean, half the people that move to California seems like that's what they do, but
Yeah.
but you wouldn't tell.
Meanwhile, they're enjoying the weather.
I know.
Yeah, you're on the beach. This sucks.
Yeah, this is so terrible.
It's 80
It's so
today.
expensive here.
I had to park my Rolls Royce somewhere else.
That's funny.
Well,
Yeah, cool, man. Well, thank you for sitting down with us. It was
Totally.
really interesting. It was really cool. Just learn about your art, everything. Being in your space is really cool.
This is all of it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
And if
Thank you.
anyone, I think it's funny because I watch a lot of podcasts and they're like, all right, follow this guy on Instagram. And they're just like, they're already being followed. You don't
Yeah,
have
I
to
know.
say anything.
Yeah.
But for our 200 listeners.
Jason Bacon, if you're not following Pinstripe Chris, go follow him.
Yeah. There might be quite a few people that don't follow you because I've actually I still have the two t-shirts that you drew.
Nice.
I still print those.
It's still like one of the most popular shirts.
The
that's cool.
C10 one, I would probably be forever.
That's hilarious.
And people, I'm like, oh yeah, Pinstripe Chris did this, and some of them know, and some of them don't, and so there might be quite a lot of people that are listening to this that don't.
That's
And
awesome.
you have a very interesting social media, like it's entertaining just to see the talent and what you produce.
Oh, thank you.
In the process.
Yeah,
It's
so
great.
follow Pinstripe Chris.
Yep.
And make a comment because he'll make a comment back.
But
Yeah.
don't ask me to pinstripe anything.
Yeah, we didn't even get into that.
I know.
We'll save that for next time.
Yeah, we'll do that next time. And don't ask him to design a T-shirt.
No t-shirts, no pinstriping,
No
no
rendering.
prints, no renderings.
God,
He
doesn't sound
actually
like I do much.
He actually doesn't do anything.
I don't do anything. I'm retired,
He
actually.
he just drives this.
You just turn this
Ferrari.
around, getting coffee.
That's it. I'm a coffee
Sitting on the
connoisseur.
beach.
That is it.
Yeah, he is the modern day Magnum PI.
Oh yeah. Right
All
on.
right.
Well, cool. All
Thanks,
right.
man.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank me. Thank you. Lucy.
Lucy.
Lucy has been hanging out the entire podcast. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye.